The biggest night of the year at my restaurant arrived, but I wasn't allowed to enter my own building. My name is Leora Dane, and the restaurant meant everything to me. I built it from nothing after years of hard work. It was my dream, my pride, and the place where I spent most of my life. A few weeks earlier, my mother-in-law, Brenna Vale, reserved the whole restaurant for a big engagement party for someone in her family. When I heard about the booking, I thought it might be a good sign. Brenna had never really liked me, but I hoped this event meant she was finally accepting me. That evening the place looked beautiful. Lights filled the dining hall, music was playing, and guests were already arriving. I walked toward the entrance feeling proud because everything looked perfect. But before I could step inside, two security guards stopped me. One of them said politely, "Ma'am, we were told not to let you in." At first I thought they were joking. I told them calmly that I owned the restaurant. They looked uncomfortable but repeated the same thing. The host gave strict instructions. I looked through the glass doors and saw Brenna inside, smiling and talking with guests like she was the queen of the event. Then I saw my husband, Cole, standing next to her. He noticed me outside. But he didn't come to help. He didn't say anything. In that moment, I understood something painful. This wasn't a mistake. Brenna planned it. She wanted to embarrass me in front of everyone, and Cole allowed it to happen. I stood there for a few seconds, feeling shocked and hurt. The restaurant I built with years of sacrifice had become the stage for my humiliation. But I didn't argue with the guards. Instead, I turned around quietly and walked toward my office at the back of the building. Because while Brenna believed she had control of the party, she forgot one very important detail. The building, the staff, and every rule inside that restaurant still belonged to me. And what happened next changed the entire night. My name is Leora Dane, and that place meant far more to me than a simple job. It carried every sacrifice, every risk, and every sleepless night I had given over the past several years. 5 years before everything happened, the small bistro I found was barely surviving. The dining room was almost always empty, the kitchen equipment was old, and the previous owner had already decided to close it. Most people would have walked away from something in that condition, but I saw possibility where others saw failure. I invested everything I had. My savings disappeared quickly, but I kept pushing forward. Long shifts became normal for me. Some mornings began before sunrise, and many nights ended long after midnight. There were evenings when I was so exhausted that I simply rested on the small couch in the office instead of going home. Every detail mattered to me. I redesigned the menu, trained the kitchen team carefully, and worked beside them every day. Slowly, things started improving. Word spread through the city, and more guests began arriving each week. People talked about the warm atmosphere, the fresh meals, and the welcoming service. Eventually the little place transformed into something special. Reservations filled quickly, and weekends were always busy. What once looked like a lost cause had grown into one of the most talked about dining spots in the area. Seeing people enjoy the space I had rebuilt gave me quiet pride. Despite all that effort, Brenna Vale never acknowledged what I achieved. She looked at the place with the same dismissive expression every time she visited. In her eyes, none of the dedication behind it mattered. The years of planning, rebuilding, and endless work meant nothing to her. Whenever the topic came up during family gatherings, she reduced everything to one simple remark. To Brenna, I was never an entrepreneur who revived a struggling location and turned it into a success. I was only the girl who cooks. From the very beginning, Brenna Vale made it clear that she never believed I belonged in her family. Her attitude toward me was cold, distant, and often openly judgmental. No matter what I did, it always seemed wrong in her eyes. During visits or gatherings, she found ways to point out something about me that didn't meet her expectations. Sometimes it was my appearance. She would look at my outfit and make a quiet comment about how certain styles were more appropriate for important occasions. Other times she spoke about my work as if it were something small or unimpressive. Even meals I prepared were not safe from criticism. If I brought food for a family dinner, Brenna would taste it slowly and then suggest that it needed improvement. The tone she used made it clear that she enjoyed finding faults. When relatives came together for holidays or celebrations, her remarks became even sharper. She liked reminding everyone that her son had many opportunities in life and could have chosen a partner with a different background. She once said, with a calm smile, that someone more sophisticated might have been a better match. Those words often made the room quiet for a moment. People would glance at me, unsure how to react. During those uncomfortable moments, I usually looked toward Cole, hoping he would say something supportive. Instead, he responded with an uneasy laugh, as if the situation were simply an awkward joke. After that, he quickly changed the topic and began talking about something else. I tried to understand his reaction. I convinced myself that he only wanted to avoid arguments and keep harmony within the family. I believed he thought silence was the easiest solution. For a long time, I accepted that explanation because it felt easier than facing the truth. But slowly I began to understand something important. By staying quiet each time Brenna spoke that way, Cole wasn't protecting peace at all. He was allowing the disrespect to continue. About 3 months before everything unfolded, Brenna Vale reached out to the person who handled private events at my place. She asked about reserving the entire location for a large family celebration. According to the request, it would be a formal engagement gathering for her niece, with many relatives and close friends attending. My event manager later informed me about the inquiry. The reservation required exclusive use of the space for the evening, which meant closing regular service and preparing a special setup. The cost for something like that was significant because it involved staff coordination, decorations, customized dining options, and extended hours. Surprisingly, Brenna did not hesitate when the price was explained to her. She agreed to the amount right away and confirmed the booking without negotiation. Everything was arranged through the usual process, and the date was secured on our schedule. When I learned that she had made the reservation, I felt genuinely hopeful for the first time in a long while. Considering the distance between us in the past, this decision seemed like a small sign that things might finally improve. I thought perhaps she was beginning to acknowledge the effort I had invested in building the place. A few days later she even mentioned the celebration directly to me during a brief conversation. Her tone was calm, almost pleasant, which was unusual. With a small smile she said, "Your little restaurant will be perfect for our family gathering." The comment sounded supportive on the surface, though the way she said little restaurant still carried that familiar hint of superiority. Even so, I chose not to focus on that detail. Instead, I decided to believe the situation might lead to something positive. The team started preparing early. Plans were made for seating arrangements, menu selections, and decorations that would match the elegant style Brenna requested. Everything was organized carefully so the evening would feel special for her family. At that time, I believed the event might represent a new beginning between us. What I didn't realize then was that Brenna had a completely different intention in mind, one that would turn that carefully planned evening into something far more complicated than a simple celebration. The evening finally arrived, and the entire place looked beautiful. Every detail had been prepared carefully for the celebration. Soft lights glowed across the dining space, elegant flower arrangements decorated the tables, and music from a small live band filled the room with a warm atmosphere. From the outside, everything looked exactly the way a special occasion should. I walked toward the front door feeling calm and confident, expecting to step inside and see the final result of all the planning. Through the large windows I could already see people gathered together, dressed formally, enjoying the beginning of the evening. But before I could reach the entrance, 2 security guards moved into my path and stopped me. One of them spoke politely but firmly. "Ma'am, we have instructions from the host not to allow you inside." For a moment I simply stared at them, certain there had been some misunderstanding. I explained who I was and assumed the confusion would disappear immediately. Instead, the guard repeated the same message again. I could hear laughter and conversation coming from inside the building while I stood outside trying to understand what was happening. My first thought was that someone had made an error with the guest list. Then the door opened. Brenna Vale stepped into the entrance, looking directly at me. Her expression carried a confident, almost satisfied smile, as if she had been waiting for that exact moment. She spoke loudly enough for nearby guests to hear. "This is a private event, Leora. Staff should use the back entrance." A pupil standing nearby chuckled at the comment. The reaction spread quickly, and suddenly the situation felt less like a performance meant for an audience. My eyes moved through the room until they landed on Cole. He was standing only a short distance away. He saw everything. He heard every word. Yet he stayed exactly where he was, silent, offering no explanation and no support, as if the entire scene unfolding in front of him was something perfectly normal. I stepped away from the front doors without saying another word. My heart was racing, but I didn't feel like going home just yet. I needed to think, to figure out what had just happened and how to respond. I made my way to my small office in the corner of the building. There, I pulled out the contract for the evening's event, something I had glanced at during planning but never thought would matter this much. I started reading carefully, line by line. As I went through it, a realization hit me. While Brenna had technically paid to book the space, the agreement clearly stated that I held complete control over every operational aspect of the restaurant for that night. I had the final say over the staff, the schedule, security, and even the menu. Every rule and policy of the restaurant was under my jurisdiction, no exceptions. It didn't take long for me to see the mistakes she had made. The event was already breaching multiple clauses: the way guests were directed, interference with staff instructions, and ignoring safety regulations. These were serious oversights, ones that gave me absolute authority to intervene. Suddenly, the anger and embarrassment I had felt moments earlier began to shift. What had seemed like a public humiliation was no longer entirely out of my control. The contract was in my hands, and with it came the power to reverse the situation entirely. I leaned back in my chair, feeling the tension in my shoulders start to ease. The laughter, the sneers, the deliberate exclusion, it all fueled a clear thought. I wasn't powerless. In fact, I had every right to act, and I knew exactly how to do it. In that moment, the sting of humiliation turned into a focused determination. What Brenna thought would embarrass me had inadvertently handed me the leverage I needed. That night, the story was about to change, and I was ready to make it happen. I picked up the phone and dialed Tess Arden, my floor manager. Her voice came through, calm and attentive, as I quickly explained what had just happened at the front entrance. I laid out the facts without letting my emotions take over, describing the way Brenna had acted and how she had deliberately ignored proper procedures. Next, I reached Milo Kerr, the head chef. I told him to pause any special orders and keep the kitchen ready, emphasizing that nothing should leave the line without my approval. I reminded him that the staff were under strict instructions for the evening, and any deviation from the contract was unacceptable. Finally, I contacted the security supervisor. I instructed him to follow my lead and ensure that all rules outlined in the agreement were enforced. I reminded him that the responsibility was now mine, and he had to report directly to me if any further interference occurred. I took a deep breath and calmly explained the full scope of the situation. Brenna had humiliated me in front of everyone, publicly treating the owner of the establishment like an outsider. She had overstepped her authority by telling staff to act against the contract, which, under the rules we had agreed upon, gave me complete control to intervene. I emphasized that according to policy, violations like these were serious. They were not minor mistakes, they were grounds for immediate corrective action, including the potential termination of the event if necessary. Within minutes, my team understood exactly what needed to happen. Everyone moved into position quietly and efficiently. Tess coordinated the floor staff, Milo prepared the kitchen for any changes, and security discreetly monitored the guests and entrances. The plan was simple but powerful. Enforce the rules, maintain control, and ensure the authority of the restaurant was respected. By the time I finished my calls, the evening had shifted. What started as a moment of embarrassment was now an opportunity to reclaim control, And I could already see the first steps of turning the situation completely in my favor. Just as Brenna began her long speech, the room was filled with polite applause. Suddenly, the music came to an abrupt halt. The soft melodies disappeared, replaced by an awkward silence that immediately caught everyone's attention. The lights, previously dimmed for ambience, were turned up sharply, illuminating every corner of the room. Guests glanced around nervously, unsure of what was happening. Conversations paused, and a sense of tension slowly replaced the festive mood. Then Tess Arden stepped confidently onto the floor. Her voice was steady, calm, and authoritative. She addressed the crowd without raising it too high, letting every word carry weight. Due to contract violations, tonight's event is being concluded, she announced. A ripple of confusion ran through the guests. Eyes darted between each other, whispers spreading across the room. Some faces went pale, while others tried to maintain polite composure. Brenna froze mid-sentence, her carefully rehearsed smile faltering. The air that had been filled with celebration suddenly felt heavy. Her lips moved, but no sound came out as she processed what was happening. And then I entered. Not from the side or a back corridor, I walked in boldly through the main entrance, the way any owner would. Heads turned immediately. Gasps filled the room as people registered my presence. Every gaze in the room fell on me. Some looked shocked, others impressed. The murmurs grew louder as the realization settled in. Brenna's eyes widened. She looked around frantically, trying to regain control, but it was too late. Everyone understood what she had forgotten, or perhaps chosen to ignore. I didn't need to say a word. My posture, my calm demeanor, and the confident way I moved through the room said it all. In that moment, it became undeniable. I wasn't just a guest, a staff member, or someone she could control. I owned the building, and the authority was fully mine. The celebration she had planned to manipulate had completely unraveled under the rules I controlled. Brenna's face turned red as she started yelling, insisting that I was ruining the evening and bringing shame to the family. Her voice echoed through the room, sharp and desperate, trying to regain control of a situation that had clearly slipped from her grasp. Guests shifted uncomfortably, some glancing at each other while others simply watched in stunned silence. Whispers spread quickly as people began piecing together what had actually happened. It became obvious to everyone present that she was the one responsible for the chaos. The embarrassment she had intended for me was now fully on her. Every attempt she had made to humiliate me backfired spectacularly. What was supposed to be her moment of control had completely collapsed, leaving her flustered and helpless. To make matters worse, the contract she had signed included strict clauses about interfering with staff operations. By instructing the team to act against the rules, she had unknowingly triggered serious consequences. The penalties were outlined clearly, and they were substantial. By the end of the night, she was handed a bill covering all damages and additional fees due to the violations. The number was shocking, and her expression showed she could barely comprehend the full amount. The event that was meant to showcase her family's elegance had turned into a costly mistake entirely of her own making. Afterward, Cole approached me, attempting to offer words of apology. He spoke quietly, almost nervously, but I didn't need him to say much. The silence and inaction he had shown earlier had already revealed where his loyalties lay and how little. He had defended me when it mattered most. Standing there, watching the scene settle and feeling the weight of the evening, I realized that justice had unfolded in a way I hadn't even expected. The evening's events had given me more than satisfaction, they had made the truth undeniable to everyone involved. Brenna's anger and frustration were clear, but nothing could undo the consequences she had brought upon herself. A few weeks after that unforgettable night, I knew it was time to make a choice that had been weighing on me for a long time. It was the hardest decision I had ever faced, but I realized there was no other way forward. I filed for divorce. The party was not the only reason, though it had been the breaking point. The deeper truth was that I could never accept a life where respect was optional, where my efforts and my voice were dismissed in the very relationship that was supposed to be built on partnership. The restaurant continued to flourish. Each day brought new guests, new praise, and new opportunities. My staff remained loyal, working beside me with trust and admiration, and together we kept the place thriving. Their support reminded me that true family can sometimes be the people who stand beside you, not those who share your last name. As for Brenna Vale, she never crossed the threshold of my establishment again. Every attempt she made to diminish me had completely failed, and her absence became a quiet but permanent reminder of her defeat. Now, when I walk through the dining room filled with laughter and conversation, I feel a deep sense of pride. Every clink of glasses, every smile on a guest's face, reminds me of the night I reclaimed control. That night when someone tried to push me out of the place I had built, the dream I had nurtured for years. Instead of being defeated, I emerged stronger. The lesson was clear: no one can take away what you have created if you refuse to let them. That night, what was meant to humiliate me became a powerful reminder of my resilience. It showed me that standing firm and trusting in my own abilities could turn even betrayal into triumph. Every moment in that restaurant now carries a sense of victory, a personal proof that my dedication, strength, and determination were more powerful than anyone else's attempt to undermine me. Do you think I did the right thing by divorcing Cole and cutting Brenna out of my life, or should I have tried to forgive them? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. Don't forget to subscribe.